You need power. Inconsistent. This is the issue that I just have with like open source stuff. This is why I tend to go towards, I get it. You don't want your data going over to GPT or to any other company. You don't like it. Yeah, let's bring that over here into hard because not many of you are willing to do that. Hence why there's a price tag. Because what I don't want is for companies to say, hey, I have this AI thing for you. No, we ain't doing that, fam. We ain't doing that. Hey, so if you see my content, you probably know that I kind of advocate for using AI within your smart home. I think it has a lot of benefit. I think there's a lot we can gain from utilizing it. Granted, there's still a lot that we can learn and probably fear from it too as well, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. Now, I primarily use OpenAI or GPT for a lot of my home automations. I just find that they're more stable, it's faster, as well as it's just smarter. I find it that it's just smarter than all the others. Personally, I see all the benchmarks. I see all the things that people post out there. Don't care. Don't give a damn. Don't care. I don't think it works for a smart home yet. At least the others don't. So far, I've been finding a lot of success with OpenAI and using GPT. And yes, you have to pay for it. Yes, it can be a chore and people fear running out of tokens or running up a bill. But you have the power. Like, the power is in your hands. You get to choose how many times you send things or what you get to send. It's up to you. So just use it responsibly. I mean, I don't mind giving up McDonald's for like a day or two in order to just experiment and toy with this. But that brings me to the free option, like using something like Ollama. You have a ton of different models that you can use for it, like Llama 3 and also Phi and all sorts of stuff. Here's my experience with it. I created this pretty cool video where I used AI, specifically GPT, to control my robot vacuum and put GPT in charge of vacuuming my floors and making sure that the house stayed clean. Basically made GPT my butler. And there were 3 things that I found that you guys were interested in. You're curious about security. You're curious about how easy or hard it was to do. And then you're also concerned about price. I'll start with the difficulty one. Admittedly, using GPT to control a vacuum isn't necessarily a hard thing to do, and you can easily do it using regular automation means, so just like creating a normal automation essentially. But it's also something that can scale up and get really complicated really fast. So for instance, I want to vacuum at a specific time under specific conditions, and those conditions can get really wild and insane if you want it to. No matter how hard a condition may get or how complicated conditions may be, you can technically code it and do it yourself. But the code and the amount of rules that you create to do it may get kind of convoluted, may get kind of long, and may get difficult to maintain. And depending on some of those conditions, you may not be able to do it at all, depending on the platform that you're in. So my point was to create a simple automation that technically will grow with your concerns. So within the system node, you can define and tell GPT how you want, like the conditions under which you want it to run. So I want you to run at this time under these conditions. It also tells it what tools it has available. So it can get an update of the house, stop, start a vacuum, delay a vacuum, and then other things, of course. And as a result, it would work infinitely, essentially. It would always run, it would know when to stop, it would know when to start, and the video explains all of that. So in terms of difficulty, I'd rate this about a 5. It's not that hard per se, but then it's definitely not as easy as what you would normally do. It's kind of sitting in the middle, and it can technically get easier if you know like a few tricks. And I have a course that kind of teaches how to use AI within your automations and make it pretty easy, but that's later. I'll talk about that later. But essentially, I kind of split the difference. It's kind of in the middle. All right, let me talk about price really quick. In the same video, I did talk about price a bit and some of the mistakes that I've made. When I gave GPT instructions, I did not give it basically boundaries, and as a result, it was able to freely determine when it should vacuum and when to not vacuum. And by what I mean by that is, even though I gave it preferences were open. So if I said, hey, you need to vacuum at least once per day, that means it can technically vacuum more than once if it wanted to, because I told it at least the smallest amount. And there were other parts of my instructions where I was still vague about it and it took liberties, but this was on purpose. I did this on purpose because I wanted to test its boundaries. I wanted to see what it can do. And it worked within expectations. Let's put it that way. It worked within expectations. But if you're using something like GPT where you have to pay for it, I would be remiss if I didn't say that you could rack up a bill. And by rack up, I simply mean that you can reach your maximum that you set within GPT. But the whole point of this is that you have agency. You get to choose how much you get to spend. You also get to choose how much you get to call and tell and give to GPT, the tokens that you use. You're the one building these automations. So you get to choose. So don't think that it's just something that's out of your control and you're just going to spend too much. You get to choose. But it would be better if you didn't have to think about or choose at all. It would be nice if it was just free, which leads me to the next option. This would mean pretty much nothing if we were using something that was, let's say, local. So this is the point that you guys are keenly interested in. The fact that you're sending information to GPT. You don't like that. I get it. You don't want your data going over to GPT or to any other company. You don't know what they're really doing with it. I mean, you kind of do, but you don't know what's happening with it. You don't like it. And I feel you. I understand. Just, an aside, before I get to the solution, as an aside, I want to understand, for those of you who feel that strongly, do you guys use or have, let's say, any of the smart home cartels in your house, Google or any of the other ones? Like, because if you do, then what point is this? Like, what's the point? Because at the end of the day, like, Alexa will basically advertise to you. Like, you can't go without seeing an advertisement on the show or any of the other devices. These things are in your house, and the concerns that you have, the things that you're doing with it already exist. This is a step towards autonomy, or you having more control. Help me understand the dissonance. But I get it. I'm not judging you. I have a Google thing, whatever here. I've used Alexa stuff. Like, I have their stuff, and I still understand the concern. So whether or not you use it, or if you're just a diehard tin hat foil, whatever, where it's like, I don't use any of their stuff because they suck. I get you. I feel you. And we have options. Let's talk about it. As you're probably aware, you have third-party tools like Ollama, where you can keep your data absolutely 100% local. With these tools, you have the ability to essentially do what the other companies allow you to do. Text generation, image generation, all sorts of other stuff. But it comes at a different cost. You need power. These systems require that you have some kind of machine that can power it well. Otherwise, it's pretty slow. In the time from that I would make to, let's say, send a call to GPT, I can send maybe about 3, 4, 5, 6 different calls before Ollama responds back to me with my first one. And that's assuming that it responds to me correctly, which brings me to the second thing. This is the vacuum simulation flow that I use when explaining the video that I mentioned earlier. This is how I test whether or not everything is working appropriately. And I can control it when it starts, stop, and whatnot to avoid racking up a large quote-unquote bill. When using OpenAI, it worked exactly how I expected. Like, exactly how I would rationale through all of this logic. It did that flawlessly. Let's try it with local LLM. This is connected to Ollama that I have here in my house now. Let's see how this operates. For those of you that haven't seen the video, this is what I expect to happen. When it starts, I give it no information, but I tell it all the things it can do. I tell it that it has the ability to set a timer, get an update from the house, stop the vacuum, and start the vacuum. Because it has no information when it first starts, it should ask for information. So it should call this. Once it gets called, it should now update GPT and say that, hey, everyone is gone and the vacuum is idle. So because it's gone and everything is idle, based off of my instructions, it's supposed to say, hey, this is a good time to vacuum. So it's going to start the vacuum. Once it starts, it's going to now update GPT and say that, hey, the vacuum is running and everyone is still gone. GPT is going to say, cool, let me just set a timer to just check back in later. So it's going to start the vacuum timer, at which point it's going to pause here and wait. Using OpenAI, that's exactly what you see. You see here, it got the update, then it started the vacuum, and then now it started the timer. All right, now let's try it with Ollama. Okay, I fired it, it has started. Now by this time, GPT has responded. We get nothing from Ollama. We're going to have to wait. Technically, this is okay because if this is a background process, we don't care how long it takes per se. We know that it can take some time. The computer that I have this running on, I hear the fan. It started to spin up. It's breathing very loud like an asthmatic. All right, so it has started, maybe it took about, I want to say about 45 seconds. And this is what we have. It only started the vacuum timer. Now it was sitting and waiting. That's not what we expect. We expected it to go and grab information. Why would it start the timer when it doesn't know the state of the house? It needs the state of the house, so it should have called the whole get vacuum update. GPT was able to do it. Ollama, not so much. Its logic is a little bit off. When dealing with fringe tech like this, I want it to work well, pretty much and I don't expect it to work perfectly. It needs to be closer to the end goal than I would anticipate it to be. So for GPT, it's pretty much at the finish line. Whereas with Ollama, you need to massage it a little bit more. You need to, tell it nice things and make it feel good about itself before it can give you what you're looking for. And for some, that may be okay. With GPT, I can be a little bit looser with it and it will just get it. The user friendliness of it is extremely high. Whereas with Ollama, you're going to be in the trenches trying to get this to work. And not many of you are willing to do that. Hence why there's a price tag. You're paying for the convenience of it just working and you not having to maintain it, not having to wait, not having to have your own systems, but it comes at the cost of price. It comes at the cost of they probably get your data, and the data that you're probably sending it, not super important because again, you get to choose what data you send it, but at the core, it costs you something. Is that cost worth the experience, I guess, is the question that you would have to answer for yourself. Me, I just care about the whole exploration and the process of figuring this out, being able to build and develop this and seeing what the future is possibly like. So whether or not I get this with Ollama or GPT, couldn't care less. But if I had a choice, I would like it to work with Ollama because I want all the power and responsibility for myself. Even if it means I have to maintain things. The only time I would give it up is if what they are offering, what GPT was offering, was far better. And currently as it is, it's a little bit far better. Like I don't have all of the time to make Ollama work and to make it feel good about itself. So it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. What are you willing to trade off, I guess, is the question. Now, could I make this work with Ollama? Of course. I'm sure I can. It'll probably take a little bit more finesse, but if I were to make this and show it to the public, I showed it to you already, but if this is something that you guys would want to do, are you guys willing to put in the elbow grease to make it work? Knowing that I can make this work on my machine, but mileage may vary for you guys. Like, in my head, I'm like, is it worth it? Like, am I doing you guys a disservice or am I helping? Like, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. But I showed it to everyone using GPT because that worked consistently and very reliably. But I will see what I can do about making it work with Ollama, and then I will show you what I get, my results, my mileage. But just know that it may vary for you too. All right, so I spent a few minutes, about a half an hour, playing with Ollama and trying to get it to operate similar to how GPT did. Just for reference, I'm using Ollama. I'm using Llama 3.1, I think like the 8 billion parameter one. And I'm also using the new tools functionality to make all this work. That's how this works. This requires you to use function calling. I updated the flow a little bit, as well as updated the information that I gave the system node or the thing that I'm telling Ollama what it can do. Like, I updated all of that to be a little bit more crystal clear and concise. And this is what happened. So it started the vacuum as it should, and that was a chore to begin with. It just wouldn't do it. But now it's concisely or consistently starting the vacuum. But then the next thing it's supposed to do is to wait. But if you've noticed, something is missing from this wait. I see the response, but I don't see how long I should wait, and it's supposed to tell me how long it needs to wait. In this wait function that you see right here, we describe like what it's used for, and we also say that it needs to return back a property called wait ms, or wait in milliseconds. It's supposed to be a number. This is the maximum amount of time it can wait. That's the minimum amount of time it can wait, as well as like a description of it. And it's required. I tell it that it's required, yet still, when we look at it, the only thing that came back is the response. Inconsistent. This is the issue that I just have with like open source stuff. I love it because it makes things available fast and quick, and it lets you do a lot of cool things, but inconsistently. Like, it lets you do cool things inconsistently. And when we're dealing with the smart home, we don't want it to be inconsistent unless you're into that or you like having a low WAF score. But this is why I tend to go towards GPT, because I knew that because they are a company and there's rules around what you can release and how you can release it, because you have an image and you haven't, people are depending on you. So there's stricter things that you must go into practice in order for things to be released. So I knew that, yeah, if I built my stuff around GPT, yeah, I'm going to have a more stable, consistent experience that I can reliably build things around. And Ollama isn't there yet. I still like the premise. I still love the premise. Still going to use it, but that's just what I'm finding. And that's just my experience with it. Maybe your experience is different. And if it is, I would love to hear about it, but that's what I'm seeing, which then brings me back to the point that I made from the beginning. To use AI in smart home is currently pretty, like, medium difficulty, and that is assuming that you're only using GPT. If you start to go use Ollama, yeah, let's bring that over here into hard, because it's going to be inconsistent and you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. On my website, I have this course that I'm trying to create. I'm in the middle of building it out, but I'm pre-selling it just for those who want to jump in and be one of the first to kind of experience this. I'm capping it at a very small number of people because I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if a lot of you are into Node-RED, because that's the primary place that I build a lot of these things and allows me to create all of this cool experience and manage my expectations, so I can keep the price down, keep it on the easiest side, and I guess from a security point of view, I can send it what I want instead of sending it everything. So Node-RED helps me to do all of that, and this experience is supposed to help you build out cool things, especially futuristic stuff that the smart home cartels can't do at the current moment. And I don't know if they can ever get there because of just the way that AI works. Like, this is such a personal experience that I don't know if they can really pull that off. But the idea is that with this, you'd be able to understand how Node-RED works. You'd understand the nodes and the nuances around it, and the nodes that I use personally. You'd be able to see how you can recreate Home Assistant automations within this Node-RED environment. But the fun part is like modules 4 and 5, where you start building out really cool automations and incorporating AI. And the idea is that I want to give you a lot of the automations that I've been building around in the background and give it to you so you can have what I'm doing, as well as K. Like, the way that I built out K, it uses GPT as the brain to make a lot of decisions and do cool things. I also want to explore with you using Ollama and making it, like, finding out what is the best experience that you can have with it, knowing its limitations, knowing that its experiences are inconsistent, or that you're going to need a powerful hardware. So what does it mean using it on softer piece of hardware? Like, to go through all of that. If that's something that excites you or you want to get into, check the link in the description and you can just browse the site. I have some ideas as to what I want to do with this first cohort of people. And one, I don't know if I'm going to do a second cohort. It all depends on what happens with this first cohort, but I want to give them like punch in the gut type of value. I'm going to drop this number and keep it very small for the first set of people coming through. But let me know, do you agree with me, disagree with me? Do you feel offended? I mean, like, I don't know. This is just my experience with integrating AI into smart home. Maybe this is not something that you'd want to do or think it should be done. Yeah, I would love to hear about it. I know that at least within AI realm, that this is happening whether you like it or not. Like, whether I like it or not, like, it's happening. So might as well, in my opinion, I jump ahead of the curve and figure out how all of this stuff works and kind of be there on the front lines, because what I don't want is for companies to say, hey, I have this AI thing for you. Look at what it can do. And all it is just a glorified chatbot and it doesn't do anything, but yet so they're going to charge me everything money. Nah, we ain't doing that, fam. We ain't doing that. Check out my other videos if you haven't, man. Like this one, like, check it out. This talks about the whole vacuum thing and you can get more details. This one was also pretty cool. It's like using AI to like create like a whole music dashboard. Pretty dope. Bro, just check it out. Look, subscribe if you haven't. Let me turn this around. Bro, subscribe. I have some really cool videos coming out. I'm changing the direction of how I'm posting things. I want this to be a little bit more captivating for people who aren't used to tech, making it a little bit more accessible in that fashion. Just check it out. Some cool stuff coming down the pipelines. All right, that's it. Bye.